to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're gonna make a clear bag that is so cute and so useful. The purpose of it is to be able to take it to sporting events, concerts, things like that. The one I'm making, not so much, but it is so cute. Today we're gonna make the Tista Crossbody in the game day version, and this comes to us from Sewcialize Designs. This bag is so stinking cute, you guys, look at this. It's a big bag too. I'll be honest, when I saw the pattern and looked at the photos, I thought it was gonna be pretty small. This is a large bag, so it is a clear bag. Now, again, if you're gonna make a bag like this to take to a concert or to a sporting event, make sure you check the venue first, because some venues can be kind of picky about which bags you can bring. The point of this is to have a fully clear bottom and then like a little accent panel on top. Obviously, I didn't do that. This is a clear vinyl on the bottom, but it has a print on it. And then for my accent panel, I used kind of a thicker, glittery vinyl. So I'm gonna tell you the combination I used here. I would not suggest if you're doing it on a domestic machine, because I did layer it up too much. I kind of got a little, my eyes were bigger than my sewing machine's abilities kind of thing, but it still turned out really stinking cute, and it is so fun. So let me walk you through the pattern real quick. We have the bottom, which is the clear vinyl, and then we have the top. With the game day version, we do have a lining on the back of this top accent, which does add layers. Honestly, if you wanted to, you could probably leave the lining off, and then just kind of, like if you had like a vinyl, you know, you could just stitch it on like you would do the Western version. So there's another version in the pattern that's included that has like a boxy, really cool Western version, which I am gonna make because I'm going to a country concert soon, so I want that for the concert. On the top, we have one of my favorite features was just this recessed zipper. Like, I love zipper panels like this. I think they're so easy to make. You can see I can pop it up, but then I can push it down, and it looks so cute. It's so clean, and it's such an easy way to put a zipper on the top of the bag. I love it. So then the zipper has a little tail over here, and then on the inside we just have the inside of the bag. So not a whole lot going on with this. I do want to show you the strap though, because I know that everybody has their own preference for crossbody straps, but I never saw a crossbody strap being made like this before, and I was so excited to try it. So can you guys see that? Look at that. Look at the detail on the bottom of this crossbody. Look how it angles down. Look at these cute little baby D-rings here. You could put keys on there. You could put your ID or badge or whatever on there. And I just think this is such a cute strap. I was so excited to make this strap. So I did speak with the pattern writer, and she informed me that the point of the larger top panel here is if you wanted to do an embroidery design, which would be so sweet. Personally, I want to make another one of these. My son plays baseball, and I really want to like embroider his team's name on here, and maybe like on the front embroider his team's name, and on the back embroider his baseball number. I think that would be so stinking cute. So you can have a lot of fun with this. You can, I don't know, like a graduation bag coming up. How sweet would that be with their class? Like the year their class graduated, that'd be so cute. So thank you so much to Sewcialize Designs for allowing me to use your patterns on my channel. You guys gotta go check them out. The designer is so sweet and so talented at thinking of really cool and useful ways to make bags. Like there's a new bag, and it has like a pop-out water bottle holder. It is so cute. It's on the list. I cannot wait to make it, but I did want to start with something a little bit on the simpler side, and I would say that this is advanced beginner. I wouldn't say beginner purely because of working with clear vinyl. That's really it. Clear vinyl can be a little tricky. Layering it can be a little hard. So I would say more advanced beginner, but it is not a difficult bag at all to make. The pattern is very, very simple to follow. The bag itself is very simple to make. The only challenging bits will come with the material you use. So be careful. I will say again, I would not encourage you to use a medium to heavyweight vinyl on this top panel here unless you're using an industrial machine or you're really, really comfortable with your domestic machine and you know it can handle it. In today's tutorial, we're going to switch this up. We're going to use some lighter weight material. I just want to see if it's any easier. So if you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shout-outs, anything at all, leave them down in the comment section. Go check out the other patterns. Let me know if there's another pattern you'd like to see from them. Leave it in the comments. I have them all on my list, but I've got all the patterns on my list because I love making bags so much. And this is a really, really beautiful one. All right, guys, let's get started. So you're gonna need at least a fat half of, the pattern suggests 20 gauge clear vinyl. As you can see, this is not clear vinyl. This is actually a jelly vinyl, so it's very similar to a clear vinyl, but it's not clear. It also has a more matte finish to it, which I think is really great when you're just starting out with clear vinyl. Clear vinyls, even ones that have prints on them, They can be quite sticky, and if you just are doing this for the first time, it can be kind of frustrating to work with. So until you feel more comfortable with that, if you want to start with a jelly vinyl, I think that that's a great option. Now, obviously, it will not be a clear bag. So if you want to use this bag for like a concert or a sports event, obviously jelly vinyl is not going to work for that. But just trying out working with clear vinyl, jelly vinyl is a great option. Then you're going to need at least a fat quarter or a 12-inch roll of vinyl of your contrasting accent. Now, my 2 cents is use something lightweight here if you're doing the stadium bag version. If you're doing the country western version, you can probably get away with your cork or your vinyl or your faux leather. But with the stadium bag, we actually are going to be layering this up quite a bit with the clear vinyl, with the lining for this. So I would suggest using something more lightweight. I have a water resistant canvas here, so I think this is going to be perfect. And then for your lining, you're also going to want a fat quarter of material. Okay, so for your strap, you're going to need at least 54 inches of your webbing. Now, if you have your own method of making a strap, go ahead and do that. This pattern does not necessarily need a specific type of strap. However, the strap that this pattern shows you how to make is so stinking cute. I've never made one like it before, and I really, really love it. So I'm gonna walk you through that today. So at least 54 inches of webbing, and then you're going to need, the pattern calls for 2 of these 1.5-inch wide slide adjusters. I'm actually just going to use 1, and then I'm also going to use a 1.5-inch wide rectangle ring. This is going to be to kind of connect 2 pieces of these webbings together. You could use just 2 of these adjusters, or you can use an adjuster and a rectangle ring. I have these rectangle rings, so I'm going to use it. Then you're going to need 2 half-inch, itty bitty, from big to itty bitty, 2 half-inch wide swivel hooks. Then for the strap, this is an optional little accent, but it is really cute. These are 2 little itty bitty baby D-rings. I'll have a link for these down below. I've used them before. I specifically have used them with like the cute heart, those little quick zip pouches. These are adorable. And I'll have a link for them down below, but they are a really fun accent to the strap. You'll see. And then I have 2 1-inch wide D-rings and my bag tag. I will also be using these 9x8mm rivets. These are going to be used for the crossbody strap only, and I'll be using a total of 8 of these. I think I forgot to mention the zipper as well. You're going to also need a 13-inch long zipper. This is a number 5 zipper tape. These are plastic teeth. They look like metal, but they're not. And then you're going to need a number 5 zipper pull to go with it. One thing I forgot to show is binding. There is an exposed top on this bag, so we are going to use a little bit of binding. This is an adhesive binding. It's very lightweight, so it doesn't add any bulk whatsoever. And it has an adhesive back on it that's very easy to sew over. So here's all the other stuff I'll be using today. I have my rivet press and the die set that goes with it, and a hole punch. This little combo here is something I use pretty much in every single bag. Then I have my Beacon 3-in-1 glue. You're gonna really want some good, strong glue for that strap. We are gluing down the corners of it, and if you're using a stiff webbing like I am, you're gonna need all the help you can get. So some good strong glue, a lighter to help clean up any loose threads. I have an air erasing marker and a silver ink pen. I like to have options when I'm marking material, but all of this is safe for the material I'm using today. I have some 1/4-inch double-sided tape, and then I have a seam ripper, and then a stiletto, a healthy supply of plastic clips, and my favorite pair of scissors. All right, so here's the main panel. This is gonna be your clear vinyl, so if you're like, that's not clear, I know, it's not. You're gonna need 2 cuts of this. So again, jelly vinyl, clear vinyl, any sort of vinyl that has a back that doesn't require a lining. That's what we're gonna be focusing on today. Like I said, if you're a newbie, you're just trying out something like this, I would suggest working with a jelly vinyl first and then transitioning over to a clear vinyl. I just think you'll find it a little bit easier. But you'll need 2 cuts of this using the pattern piece. Next up is the game day panel. Now, if you're doing the Western version, it's going to be different. Doing the game day one, I wanted to make note that this is a nice big panel, specifically because the designer wants you to be able to embroider whatever you want on here. So especially if you have like a local, sports team, like your kid's baseball team or something like that, and you want to try to like put your kid's baseball number on here or their team name, that would be really cool. Or if you're going to another game, and you just want to put the sports team on here, that would be really, really fun. So it's a nice big panel, so you can embroider lots of things on there. You're gonna need 2 of your exterior contrasting materials, so whatever you choose to use, which for me is this lightweight water resistant canvas, and then 2 lining panels. This is also a lightweight water resistant canvas. My rule of thumb here is start light, and after you make one with lightweight material, if you feel like you can handle a thicker vinyl, then go for it. I love the version that I made with that sparkly, thick pink vinyl. However, it was difficult because it was just so many layers, and I wasn't quite prepared for that. An industrial machine probably would have been fine, if you're using a domestic, start with lightweight material. You can even use a cotton woven here or a quilt cotton. You can use anything like that. All right, next up, you're gonna have 2 cuts for your zipper placket. This is actually going to be the sides of the zipper. So the zipper kind of lays in the center of the bag with side panels on each side of it. So you're gonna need 2 cuts of this. Below that, I have 2 cuts of my upper main lining. I will make note that I actually made it 1 inch longer. So I extended it this way horizontally or wider. It's hard to tell, but I made it longer by 1 inch. I find that that works better for me when we're sewing into place. I'll show you later why we do that. But especially because I'm using a lightweight material. If you're using a thick vinyl for this piece right here, then I would suggest not making it 1 inch longer. But if you have a lightweight material, it's gonna be easier to get it in the seam if we make it just a little bit longer. And then I have the gusset, which is really just the bottom of the bag. And this is also with that clear vinyl or jelly vinyl, whatever you're using for the bottom. Okay, next we have 2 little cuts here for our strap accent. I'm using jelly vinyl for it. That's gonna look really cool. This is actually that little fun bit that goes on the strap that narrows a 1.5 inch wide webbing down to a 1/2 inch wide webbing, which is really, really cute. And then you're going to have your D-ring connectors. Now this is actually gonna be cut in half later. So if you're like, that's a lot bigger than mine, I just have one and I'm gonna cut it in half in just a moment, but I like to cut it all at once in the beginning. And then finally we have a little zipper tab. If you have a piece of hardware you wanna use instead for the zipper end, use that. That's really easy, but I'm gonna show you how to just wrap this on and sew it in place. It's very cute. So let's start with these little D-ring connectors. On the back side, you're gonna measure in 1 inch in from the long edges. So not the short edges, the long edges, measure 1 inch in. And then I'm going to trim down the corners just like the pattern suggests because it does help reduce bulk. So I'm just gonna trim these corners down. Okay, and now I wanna fold the longer edge back, wrong sides together to meet that center line. And if you wanna use tape here to stick it in place, go ahead and do that. You could also just use clips or depending on your material, you could use an iron. So repeat this with the other long edge, pulling the other long edge, wrong sides back to meet that center line. Once you have one strap connector done, repeat with the other one. Okay, now we're gonna take these to the sewing machine. We're gonna top stitch along both long folded edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then I'm gonna do a second row at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. The pattern says do a second row at 1/4 inch. That's beautiful, I like that too, but I think it's also really cool if we do it at a 3/8 inch. So you know me, I'm just gonna mix it up. So I'm gonna do 1/8 inch and 3/8 inch seam allowance top stitching. All right, once you have these top stitched, you're going to take them and you're gonna wrap the back side around the straight bar of your D-ring and then clip the short raw edges together. So this is right side out, wrong sides together for your strap connector. And then we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and we're just going to baste along the short edges here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to hold these in place. All right, once you're done with those, you can set these to the side. So now grab your webbing and cut off an 8-inch piece. So you're gonna have a nice long piece and then a shorter piece. And this part can be a little tricky. So make sure you have webbing that you're comfortable using. I will say that this handmade webbing is pretty thick, so it's a little tricky to glue this in place. A more lightweight webbing is a lot easier, but I love this stuff, so I'm gonna use it. And then you're gonna want some good glue. I'm using a Beacon 3-in-1 glue and clips here to help with this part, but an epoxy glue is also a great option. Here's what you wanna do. You wanna take the bottom edge of one of your straps here and fold the 2 corners back at an angle so they meet right in the center. So you have like a little arrow now. That's what we're going for. And the thicker your webbing is, the harder this is going to be. So grab your glue and let's add glue right on the corners here. And I would suggest using quite a bit of glue. I mean, the more the merrier here when it comes to the glue. And then once you have lots of glue on there, you're gonna fold these corners back again, wrong sides back. So you have that arrow. The glue will not hold it in place. So you're going to need to grab some clips, fairly strong ones. If you have to use a binder clip or something, that's fine too. Just grab your clips, get this to stay folded while the glue dries. That's the goal. So there's one edge. I'm gonna repeat this with the long strap and you're only doing this on one end of each of your strap cuts here. So set these to the side while the glue dries. Then grab your 2 strap accent pieces and then the template for that, and the template has a couple of rivet placement marks on it. Go ahead and mark those on one end of each of your strap accents and then use your hole punch and punch a hole where each of those marks are. And then using those holes, you can actually just fold your strap accent in half, just like this, and then mark placement on the other side so that you know when you fold this in half later, it'll all match up. So now I have placement for my other holes, and I'll grab my hole punch and just punch those out as well. Or you could just use the template if you like. So do this with both your strap accents. Once you have the holes punched out, grab one of your 1/2 inch swivel hooks and thread it onto your strap accent. And you can just kind of clip the top of it. How cute is that? Aren't those so sweet? This is gonna look cute. Okay, I'm still waiting for this to dry, but I can continue working on my strap. So on the short strap here, on the wrong side, with the wrong side up of the top edge that's not folded down, we're just gonna wrap this around one edge of either your rectangle ring or your second slide adjuster. And you could just leave it like this, or you can double fold it, where you fold it down once by, what is this? This is about 1/2 inch. So fold that edge down once by about 1/2 inch, and then fold the whole unit down again by about 3/4 inch so that you don't have any raw edges. It's totally up to you. With webbing, you can have the raw edges. It's not that big of a deal. You could cover the raw edge with a scrap piece of your vinyl so that you don't have to double fold it. There's lots of options here, but I'm gonna do the double fold. And I'm gonna grab some clips to hold the sides down while I find placement for my rivets. This is the one I'm gonna add these little cutie patootie. I think they're called corset rings. I think that's what I've seen them called, but I'm gonna add those cuties to this right here. So if you have a template or anything to help you with placement marks for a 1.5 inch wide webbing for the rivets, you can use that, or you can just use your eyeballs, which is what I do. And I'm just gonna kind of eyeball placement here. As you can tell, I'm not that precise. So I'm gonna remove the clip. I'm gonna punch a hole in one of my spots here. I'm just gonna do this one at a time. So once that's punched, I'm gonna grab the rivet with the stem on it, and I'm gonna start pushing that through, but I'm gonna lift up the fold over area here, and I'm gonna grab one of my little corset rings, and I'm going to just slide it over the stem before it gets to the other single piece of webbing, and then I'm gonna push the rest of the rivet through that. It's very bulky if you're using this type of webbing. And then I'm gonna grab the cap and snap it on my rivet. How stinking cute is that? So you see you have like this little peekaboo D-ring right here that you can clip on an ID, keys, things like that. Like you can clip things onto this, which I think is really cute. Totally optional, but it's very cute. So I'm gonna repeat this with the other mark as well, and then adjust these so that they look the way you want them to look. And they're just the cutest little babies in the world. And then grab your rivet press and you can set these rivets in place. Just give them a nice firm push. All right, how sweet is that one? So let's set the short strap to the side for just a moment. Now grab your long strap, and we're gonna work on the end that does not have the glue. And with your strap right side up and your slider right side up, you're going to thread the webbing up through one end of your adjuster here, over the middle bar, and out the other, just like that. You know, I just realized that I did this backwards. When you fold this over and add these little baby D-rings, you're supposed to do it on the right side of the webbing here, not on the wrong side. It's still gonna look cute, it's still gonna be usable. It's just, I totally forgot I was supposed to flip this onto the right side, and you're supposed to have little baby D-rings showing on the right side of your webbing, not the back side. So that's why I usually don't set my rivets until the very end, because I have a tendency to make these mistakes. So now with your short webbing right side up and your long webbing right side up, and we're looking at the edge of the long webbing that does not have the fold over, you're going to thread it over your rectangle ring or adjuster here, over the top bar, and then back, wrong sides together, just like that. And you're gonna pull it up behind the strap adjuster that you added just a moment ago, and this is going to be the actual adjuster that adjusts the lengths of the strap. So we're gonna pull it up, and you're gonna push it up from the bottom over the edge that it can touch, so it's wrong sides together with this webbing side over here. So for me, that's the right side. I'm gonna pull it up, and then I'm going to push that raw edge down so it goes around that middle bar, and then give yourself some slack here so you don't have to worry about that. And then fold over the raw edge by about 1/2 inch, and then fold over the webbing about 3/4 inch. So now you can see I have this pinched. I've got my outer pieces of webbing here on the sides, which I'm not working with, and then I have my inner piece of webbing here that's folded over. And now I'm just going to grab my hole punch, and I'm gonna punch holes for my rivets. And honestly, this isn't seen at all in the end, so it doesn't have to look perfect. If your rivets aren't perfectly lined up, in my opinion, that's perfectly fine. So I just punch a hole insert a rivet, and then add the cap on the back. I'm going to do this on the other side as well. For a 1.5 inch wide webbing, you really do want 2 rivets to hold it in place. All right, and before I set these rivets, I'm just going to double check. Here we go. So here's our strap. So our strap is right side up over here. My handmaids are crisscrossed. I'm fine with it, okay? I'm fine with it. I know that they're not in the same direction. So I have my short piece here, and then I have my long piece. It wraps around that connector bar. It's sealed around the swivel so that I can make the strap shorter. I can make the strap longer. And then I have my other strap in here as well. So now I have one strap made up of multiple pieces. I'm going to grab my rivet press, and I'm just going to press down these rivets. Okay, now with our webbing right side up, I'm going to focus on these bottom edges now. I think my glue is mostly dry. So I'm going to grab my rivets and my swivel hook and my hole punch. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove the clips here. And if you want to keep the clips on the side, just in case, you can do that, which I think I do prefer to do. There we go. So I'm going to take my little fancy D-ring here, and I'm going to center this over the triangle end. Do your best to eyeball this and make sure it meets up. Make sure it stays folded in half. So then I'm going to use those dots, those holes that are already punched in my little accent piece here, to mark placement for where I need to punch holes on my webbing. All right, there's that. I'm going to grab my hole punch, and I'm going to punch a hole in each of these spots. You could just start with the bottom spot and then install the rivet for that and then do the top spot, which I think I actually might do just in case. So I'm going to grab a rivet with the stem. I'm going to wrap my accent around the triangle bottom of my webbing. I'm going to insert the stem through the bottom hole on my accent, and then I'm going to insert it through the webbing. Looking at the back, I'm going to insert it through the bottom hole on the back side of my accent. And I'm just going to add the cap. Okay, I'm not pressing anything in place yet. Okay, so now I'm going to straighten this out. Get it just like I want it. Here we go. Figure out how I want it to look. And once I'm happy with that, I'll use the hole on the top to mark placement for the next rivet. Move everything out of the way. Move the back accent piece out of the way when you punch this hole, because you want to just punch through the webbing, and then grab your rivets with the stem. Push it through the accent, push it through the webbing, and then push it through the back part of the accent. There we go. And let's remove these clips. Let's put a cap on the back here. How stinking cute is that? All right, and I'm going to set this in place. And I will tell you that this bottom rivet here, it is helping to hold back the 2 folded over edges. You're pretty much putting it right between where those edges come together. So as long as they're glued in place strongly here, once we punch this down or once we set it in place, it's going to also hold those corners back. So you have the glue and you have the rivet holding those corners of your webbing in place. And that's adorable. I wish I would have planned better to make this. You know, my other one, I just got lucky and they ended up facing the same direction, but you know what, it's a problem for another day. I'm going to repeat what I just did with this other corner on the shorter piece of the webbing. All right, there you go. I love this little strap so much. I think it's so cute. I think it's worth the extra time. Now, if you just want to do a quick strap, or you already have like a pre-made strap, go for it. But I think it's worth it to do the extra work. I think these little accents here are really cute. Even if you screw up like I did multiple times, it's still an adorable strap. You're going to be glad you made it. So you can set this to the side now. So now grab your 2 zipper plackets and your zipper tape. And now I don't have the pull on here. You're actually, if you have a zipper pull on here already, you're going to take it off in a minute. So you don't need to put a zipper pull on here right now. So with your zipper plackets wrong side up, measure in 1 inch in from the short edges and make a mark with some sort of a fabric marker, like your air erasable marker. Then let's grab some double-sided tape. And we're going to add some double-sided tape just outside of that one mark, so it's on the side that's closer to the raw edge of the short edge of your placket. Never gonna remember that. So do this for all 4 of your short edges. Once you have the tape added, you can remove the paper and then fold that short raw edge back wrong sides together so that the raw edge meets that 1 inch mark, just like that. So do this for all 4 edges. All right, once you have those folded back, then what you want to do is mark the midpoint on the long edges of these plackets. And I'm just going to fold it in half like that. And I'm just going to use scissors to mark the midpoint. But if you want to use a fabric marker, you can use that as well. So do this for both of your panels. Okay, you can set those to the side for just a moment. Then grab your zipper tape. And if you have a preference on which side is going to be like the opening side, and which side is the closing side, think about that now because we're working on the opening side. So for me over here on the left, this is going to be the side that's opens when I open the zipper, and then it closes like this. So what I like to do is I like to measure about 3/4 of an inch down from the open edge of my zipper tape while it's all still closed. It's just easiest this way. And I'm just going to mark right on the raw edge of the zipper tape, just like that. And then what I want to do is I want to open up that edge of the zipper. And then right where that 3/4 of an inch mark is, I'm going to pinch the zipper tape so it pinches wrong sides together and curves up and away from the center. So the zipper teeth are curving up and then away from the center. And with that pinch, I can just kind of tuck it right underneath the zipper teeth. So it's like a nice, clean 90-degree fold. I'm gonna add a clip here to hold this in place. And then do the same thing on the other side. Just pinch and fold so the teeth go away from the center. And the material creates a nice little 90-degree fold right underneath those teeth. There we go. So now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to baste along each side over the zipper teeth that are curving away at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Use a stiletto here and a zipper foot to help keep everything in place. Okay, so this is what your zipper should look like now. So now grab one of your placket pieces and lay it right side up, and then take your zipper right side up, and with the opening over here on the right, match up the bottom zipper piece here. So the bottom teeth with the midpoint, and maybe you don't have it cover the midpoint, maybe have it come just up to it. So just a little for me to the left of the midpoint, because we're going to wrap this around and these teeth are bulky. So it's just kissing it. And we're going to line up the raw edge of our zipper tape with this bottom raw edge of our placket and use clips to clip together. So this is what it should look like. It's overhanging the edge over here on the left. Okay, now we're just gonna baste along this edge here that's clipped at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So just where the placket and the zipper meet, baste that in place. All right, so once that's basted in place, take the opposite end here that's not connected to the zipper, the right side, fold it back so it covers the zipper, and it's gonna match up with the folded over edge on the left side. And then clip, I like to clip the folded over edges first together, and then clip it to the edge of the zipper that you just basted down. All right, once this is all lined up and clipped in place, I'm gonna sew along this side right here at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm gonna backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, I'm using lightweight material here, so I don't really have to worry so much about bulk along this corner here. I am gonna trim down my zipper tape just a little bit because it is overhanging. Remember, any single time you cut zipper tape, you need to also melt down the raw edges because it will fray. And then once we have this sewn in place, I'm going to flip the material so it's right side out, wrong sides together, and just pull the zipper tape away from the material. And then with the material wrong sides together, we're going to clip this in place and flatten it out. If you're using material like I am that you can iron, you can go ahead and iron this to get it nice and flat, or you can just kind of eyeball it. Again, the pattern, it looks like they're using thicker material, like a vinyl. I'm not going to do that. All right, once you have it nice and flat, we're going to take this to the sewing machine. We're going to top stitch along all 4 edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, we've got one side done. Now we're going to repeat that with the other side, and I'm going to walk you through it. So I'm going to take my remaining placket and lay it right side up. And then I'm going to take my zipper teeth. This time I'm going to work on the right side of it. I was working on the left side before, now I'm going to work on the right side. So once again, my zipper is right side up, and my raw edge of my zipper tape is going to match up with the bottom raw edge of my placket, and I'm going to line up my teeth so that they come just up to that midpoint mark, but they don't quite touch it. Also, whenever you're lining this up, go ahead and flip this over and make sure that the folded edge of your placket that's not sewn in is at the same spot as the placket that is sewn in. Just make sure those are lining up, because that's important that it all lines up on both sides. So then just clip your zipper tape to your placket. Remember, both of them are right side up. And now we're gonna baste just along this edge here where the zipper and the placket are together at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, once that's basted on, take the unsewn part of your placket and fold it so it's right side down over the right side of the zipper, and the folded edge lines up with the folded edge that you already basted in place. That's the big important part here. And then just clip along the edge that you basted in place already. So you have your zipper sandwiched between the two halves of this panel. And now we're going to go to the sewing machine. We're going to sew along this clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, backstitch at the beginning and the end. And if you need to trim down this corner or your zipper tape, go ahead and do that now. I apologize if the lighting gets weird in here, guys. We have storms going through, so it got real dark. But I refuse to quit. So now we're going to pull the placket so it's right side out, wrong sides together, and just tug along those zipper teeth to get a nice sharp corner up here on the top. And then pull the material back, wrong sides together. And you can iron this if you're using water resistant canvas like I am, or you can just smooth it out with your fingers and use clips or tape, whatever is easiest. Don't make this too hard. Make it as easy as possible. All right, once you have it flattened out nicely, you're gonna take it to the sewing machine and just top stitch along all 4 edges of that placket at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, once you have that all top stitched, your zipper portion is done. You can set this to the side. Now grab your game day accent panels, the 2 exterior and the 2 lining, if you're using this, or grab your western and just use the western one to top stitch down. But I'm gonna show you how to do the game day one. So I'm gonna take the lining and the exterior and I'm gonna lay them right sides together. And I'm specifically focused on the bottom curved edge here. So I'm gonna grab my clips and clip along that bottom curved edge. I'm going to do this with my other exterior and lining combo. Now I'm going to sew along these bottom clipped edges, only the bottom clipped edges, at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and the end. All right, once you have that sewn, grab your scissors and just cut little slits where the curves are. Now you can cut little triangles, that's what the pattern does. Depending on your material, if you have a thicker material, the triangles are definitely going to be the most useful. If you have a lot more lightweight material, you can kind of get away with just cutting little slits straight into the seam. So I'm cutting close to the stitches, but I'm not cutting the stitches, just where the curves are. So I'm going to do this for both my panels. And then once you have that prepped, you're going to flip your 2 panels so that they are wrong sides together and push out those curves. If you have material you can iron, go ahead and iron this to flatten it out really nicely. I just take my time and kind of worm it around with my fingers. And then what I like to do is I like to match up the corners of the raw edges first, and then the long raw edge. I find by doing this and getting this lined up and clipped together first, it's easier for me to properly smooth out the bottom part. So I'm just going to clip up here. Now I can go around the bottom part and smooth out, flatten out, get it to look just the way I want it to look. So once you have one done, repeat that with your other accent panel. All right, now grab your bottom panels and lay one of your accent panels right on top the top edge, lining up the top edges just like this, and then go ahead and clip along this top straight edge. You're just overlaying your panel directly over the vinyl. Now, this is why I said be careful with bulk, because if you use a very bulky clear vinyl and very bulky vinyl up here, it gets tricky. So I think that using the more lightweight material is going to work out really well for me today. I'm going to repeat with the other accent and my other bottom panel. All right, once you have these attached just to the top edge, we're going to baste along only the top edge, not the sides and stuff yet, just the top straight edges for each of these at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to hold this in place. All right, once you have the top edges basted, now just make sure you get your panel nice and flat. You could also add double-sided tape here, although if you have a clear vinyl, you might not want to do that because you would see it on the other end. So just get it as flat as you can everywhere. And now we're going to take these back to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch along the sides and the bottom curved edges on both panels at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to hold these cute accents in place. How stinking cute are these looking? So now I'm going to add my bag tag to the front panel. This is what I'm considering the front panel. And I just measured up 4 inches from the bottom edge and centered it. And I'm going to just top stitch along all 4 edges of my tag at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now grab your 2 little D-ring connectors and you're going to line these up on the zipper accent side just above the top stitching on the bottom edge where it's rounded here. Now, think about your material, okay? If you're using a thick vinyl up here and your D-ring connectors are kind of a thick vinyl, this is gonna get bulky. You can move it down. You could instead put them just below the zipper accent panel to reduce bulk. I'm not worried about my water resistant canvas adding any bulk really, so I'm gonna place these per the pattern, but I will tell you on my last bag, I was like, whoa, this is getting really thick on these sides here because of the accent material I was using. And if that's the case, you do have the option to just place them just below the accent. It'll be fine. So I'm gonna go base these down now at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now grab your two main panels that have the accents on it, and then grab your upper main lining panel. So then let's just work with these one at a time. With the main panel right side up, grab your upper main lining panel, and you're gonna lay it right side down. And you can see that my upper main lining panel is longer than what it shows in the pattern. That's okay. If you want, you should match up the midpoint marks first. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's make a midpoint mark on the top edge of each of our main panels. And then you can also make a midpoint mark on the top edge of your upper lining panel. Okay, so with your main panel laying right side up, grab your lining panel and lay it right side down, matching up the midpoint marks. And again, the reason I made my upper main lining panel so much longer is because it's a lightweight material. If you're using a vinyl or a heavier material, you'd want to make it shorter per the pattern. All right, so I'm going to repeat this with the other main panel and upper lining panel. Now we're going to take these to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew along each clipped edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, this is where it gets a little tricky. What you're going to do now is you're going to fold the lining back, and you're going to push the seam back as well. This is what got me the first time, because this seam right here can be so bulky. So bulky. And that's hard. My tip, I still have bulk here. I mean, I'm folding the jelly vinyl back on itself, and jelly vinyl doesn't like to fold like that. So even though it's not terribly thick, it just doesn't like that fold. So I'm still gonna have to be careful with this seam up here. As you can see, I'm just folding it back and adding clips to hold it in place. As you sew, go slowly and check the back as you're sewing. If you see a bunch of loops, like really noticeable big loops from your top thread looping on the back of it, on the lining side, you need to increase the tension of the thread that's going through the needle. So there's bobbin tension, and then there's upper tension. Bobbin tension we don't really ever touch. The upper tension we can manipulate a lot. So for example, on my Bernina, my upper tension is usually set at like 5.5, just normally. For this, I'll probably make it go up to a 7 or 7.5. I think the max it goes up to is like 10 or 10.5. For the version with the pink vinyl, I had it almost at a 10. I needed it to be as tense as possible, and it was still difficult. So that's why if you have a bunch of thick material and you have an industrial sewing machine, you should be good. But for us domestic sewers, you need to be careful. Okay, once you have it all smoothed out and pinched, and if you even want to, if you're using the vinyl, I mean, obviously you probably have a clear vinyl or something on here. If you want to use a seam roller and even go over it with a seam roller first, or blast it with a hair dryer, warm up that vinyl, and then pinch it really tight, that would be great. Because what we want to do is we just want this to be as tight and pinched as possible. The problem with the tension is that like air bubble. So let me show you. We're gonna go off course for a minute. So let's see, when I fold this in half, you see how it's like, there's like a bubble here, you see, and I'm pinching it, but even when I pinch it really, really tightly, over here on the left of where the pinch is, the two pieces of material are completely flush against each other, right? But right at the pinch, it's like a little tiny bit of a bubble. It's just from that fold, it doesn't like that. And that's where the tension issue happens, is at that little bubble there. You'll notice that if you try to sew right here, it's not hard at all. But when you try to sew right along the fold, you get tension issues. It's because of that space there. So what we try to do is we try to smush it down as much as possible. So like I said, a seam roller with clear vinyl, heat it up with a hair dryer or a heat gun or something, and then smush it down. That's gonna help a lot. So let's take this to the sewing machine and let's top stitch along the top edge of each of our main panels, back stitch at the beginning and the end, go slow and keep checking your tension. Look at that beautiful backside. Ha ha ha. We had no issues with the oh my gosh, you guys, that makes me so happy. That looks so good too. I love this bag. Okay, so now we're gonna work on putting it all together. Let's install this zipper. take your main panels and flip the lining up just like that. So you understand we're attaching the zipper placket to the lining pieces now. And now what you're gonna do is take these apart. That's why we never added the zipper in the first place. So let's start with the front panel. Okay, so this is my front panel, and I want my zipper to open by going towards the right and close by going towards the left. So I have to think about that with my, which one of these zipper pieces do I use? Your zipper is gonna go right side down, and it's going to go in the middle of your upper lining piece. So before we get started, let's just mark our midpoints, and then we're gonna mark the midpoints on the raw edge of each zipper placket. And if you haven't already, mark the midpoint along the raw edge of your upper lining panel as well. Okay, so using the front panel, lay your front panel right side up and pull that upper lining piece up so you have the right side of that as well facing up. Grab the placket piece that has the curved over edge on the left when it's all wrong side up. So the placket is wrong side up, the fabric part of it is on the top, the zipper part of it is on the bottom, and the zipper folded edge is on the left, the zipper tail is on the right. And you're going to line this up midpoint to midpoint with the right side of that upper lining piece and clip together. So these two pieces are right sides together and centered. Okay, so this is how the front panel should look. So just to give you a little idea, when you flip it over and it's all sewn together, the top will be like this. It closes to the left, it opens towards the right. So move that to the side, and let's do the back panel now. So once again, lay the back panel right side up and pull up that lining panel so it is right side up. Your zipper tape should be right side down. The folded over edge is on the right this time. The tail is on the left. So it is the opposite of the front panel. It has to be the opposite or else the zipper will not work. So it's the opposite of the front panel. Right side down, zipper's right side down, right sides together with the lining panel. Match up those midpoints and clip these edges together. Okay, so this is how they should look. They're opposites, right? Tails are on opposite ends. Now we're going to sew along each one of these clipped edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. All right, we've got that stitched in place. Now what we want to do is work on the back side of this upper lining piece here. This isn't terribly difficult. If you want to use 1/8 of an inch wide double-sided tape here, that's fine too. It might be a little bit easier since this is a skinnier seam, but I'm just adding double-sided tape right along this raw edge here, right where we just sewed. Also along the edges of the upper lining panel where we did not sew. And that's the reason for the tape, is because we're going to fold this back and make it look nice and neat, but we didn't sew over there, so we need tape to help us. So what we're going to do now, it might help if you just lift up that placket, is you're going to fold the material, you're going to fold the seam behind the upper main lining panel. So see, I started with the zipper portion here, just push it down. That shouldn't be terribly difficult, but then you're just going to go ahead and continue on the edges of the upper lining panel as well. So that's all folded down nice and neat. So this way on the back, this is what it looks like. All the seam is behind this upper main lining panel, but on the front, it just looks nice and clean and folded. So repeat this with the other main panel as well. All right, once you have both of those seams folded and looking nice and clean, we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch along the upper main lining panel at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance in from those folds. You can backstitch at the beginning and the end. All right, this is looking so cute, isn't it? I love it. I'm telling you, the jelly vinyl is really, really good too. It's really good. So now what we want to do is add the base. So grab your main panel, whichever front or back, whichever you want. Take your base, you're going to lay it right side down along the bottom edge, and it should match up mostly exactly. Now just clip these right sides together. Now let's go sew along this bottom clipped edge here at 1/4 inch seam allowance, backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now fold the bottom panel, the bottom gusset down, and you want the seam to go against the bottom gusset. So you're gonna have to press it really well. This is another one of those moments where stitching can get kind of difficult. So if you have like a seam roller or something, this is actually going to help out a lot. Because again, remember what I said, the goal is to just get this as pinched and flat as possible so that little air bubble where the fold is doesn't cause problems, but also increase the tension in your upper thread. So I'm just going to do that. Heat is also a good thing here. If you want to heat this up with a hairdryer, just blow the hairdryer on hot right against the seam for a minute, and then press it down, and you'll notice you can get it pretty crisp, which is nice. So now we're going to top stitch along the bottom panel here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I would suggest back stitching at the beginning and the end. All right, once that's attached, grab your other main panel and lay it right side up. Take your main panel with the base panel, lay it right side down, line up that base panel gusset piece with the bottom edge of the other main panel and clip right sides together. And now let's sew along this clipped edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end. All right, once again, we're going to fold this so the seam is behind the bottom gusset. So looking at the right side here, working on this panel over here on the right, just pushing that seam so it's behind that bottom panel. And depending on your material, it can be kind of difficult. Don't forget my tips. Seam roll, hair dry, just pound it into submission. Hey, I know some people that use hammers. They do. They'll hammer down their seams because that's all you got to do. You just got to get it thin. It's not the layers that are the problem. It's the thickness in that gap. Okay, so now we're going to go top stitch along the base panel here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just holding that seam in place. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end. Alrighty, time to finish it up. Make sure everything is tucked in. If you want to take your zipper tails here and just kind of clip them to the zipper so you don't accidentally sew them down. Make sure your D-ring hardware is in. Take your two main panels and lay them right sides together. And you want the upper main lining panels to be folded down. So that's the important part. I know for me for a while I was like, are they folded up? And then we push them down. They're folded down. And if you have the upper main panels per the pattern, they don't reach the side seam over here. But you do sew them down because of a difference in seam allowances. So we'll discuss. So right now I'm just focused on making sure my D-ring hardware is tucked in, and I'm gonna line up my accent panels so that they meet up over here, and line up the top corner of my bag and the bottom corner. Out of all the places, if you can't get something to line up, the bottom corner here is the one that's fine if it doesn't line up exactly. So I would say the accent panel in the top corner here, make sure those are lined up properly. But if you come down here and you're like mine, where it's like it overhangs a little bit, that's fine. Don't even worry about it. You don't see that part. This part, it'll be noticeable if they're not lined up. This part, it will not be. So let's do the same thing on the other side. See my little hardware likes to peek out? Get back in there. I always line up the bottom of the accent panels first, and then I try to do the top corner here, and then I just work my way down towards the bottom corner. Okay, so here's what the pattern says to do. At the bottom here, on the bottom corner, you're gonna start at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch. You're gonna work your way up the side towards the top of the bag at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you get to the game day panel, towards your accent panel here, you're gonna start increasing it to a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then as you continue on, you're going to keep increasing it to a 1/2 inch seam allowance. The point of increasing and stopping at a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the top edge here is to grab the sides of that upper panel because it is supposed to be shorter. Like I said, I wasn't able to actually grab the sides on my first time because my panel was a little too short, and I think when I was sewing, I tucked it in too much. So since I'm using lightweight material, I'm okay with it being in the sides, but I'm still going to do the 1/2 inch seam allowance. So bottom, for most of the bottom panel, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you get to the accent, starts going up to a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then just continue until you get to a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Do this for both sides and make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Go slow and be very, very careful where it gets bulky here. You'll see I'm using a ruler and I put it underneath my presser foot, and I'm using that as a hump jumper. So with the ruler underneath the back of my presser foot, I'm going from a very low area to a very high area. So not many layers to a lot of layers. And the needle doesn't like that change so quickly. So by using something to help raise up your presser foot as you go over the area, you'll notice that it makes it a lot easier to sew. If you need to increase your needle to a 90-14, now's the time to do it. I think I'm actually going to. So that was pretty good. My tension seems like it's okay. I will tell you the only parts I had trouble with were when I was going over those D-ring connectors. And I'm pretty sure that's because I used the jelly vinyl as my D-ring connectors. I think if I were to do this again, I'd probably use like a lightweight faux leather or lightweight vinyl instead of the clear vinyl for the connectors, but it did work. So now let's box these corners. So we're going to just pull along the corners down here and straighten it out. And when you do this, the further up you can pull up things apart, the easier it's going to be. So instead of just focusing on this edge right here, pull up further up here. And then you can spread open your seam allowance and use some clips. Just straighten this edge out as best you can. And I find that adding clips over here on the fold on the side is also really helpful at getting this nice and straight. Okay, so do this for both sides, both box corners. Okay, so now let's take our bag to the sewing machine. We're gonna sew along each one of these box corners at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. If you wanna do a second row of stitches at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, that will help as well. Well, I forgot to hit record when I was stitching down these box corners. I apologize, but it was uneventful. So all I did was do 2 rows of stitching, one at a 1/4 inch, one at an 1/8 of an inch. Right now what I'm doing is I'm just melting down the tails of my threads. I did backstitch the beginning and end of both of those. And by melting down these tails, it'll just give it a nicer look because I am not going to be putting binding down here. Okay, so speaking of binding, you could have done this before you boxed the bottoms. It doesn't matter. But we want to bind just these upper bits here. That's all really. Just up here where we have the fabric and we have all this kind of mess. So I'm going to grab a piece of my binding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold down the short edge of my binding so it's wrong sides together. And I'm going to wrap it around one edge here all the way up to the top. Okay, and then I'm going to cut this off about 1/2 of an inch above the top like that. And then I'm going to peel this back and fold it down so it looks nice and neat. There we go. And I'll just wrap it around this and use some clips to hold it in place. There we go. All right, so that's what my binding looks like. Again, it's just a temporary adhesive right now. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. All right, now I'm just gonna go stitch down this binding at about a 1/4 inch seam allowance just to hold it in place so that it stays there. It's not a noticeable feature, so it's okay if it's a little wonky. It's just gonna cover up those raw edges. Well, you guys, we're pretty much done with the bag and the sun decided to come out, which is how it goes sometimes. So now we're going to turn this right side out, which can be very difficult, especially with clear vinyl. If you want to grab a hairdryer, what I do is I just like set my hairdryer on the table so that it's pointed off the edge of the table, and then I just hold this in front of it while it's running to try to help turn it right side out. I think with the jelly vinyl I can do it without the hairdryer. I'm going to try. Oh, this is looking cute, cute, cute. Oh my word. I love it with the jelly. I know that's not the point of it. I know the point of it is to be a clear bag, but I like it, dang it. I think it's cute. All right, now we just have to add the zipper and close off the end and we're done. So pull your zipper up, line up your zipper ends, grab your zipper pull, and just add it on. There we go. How cute is that? It's so cute. All right, if you've got a mess of your zipper tape over here, go ahead and clean it up, trim it down, grab a lighter, melt down the raw edges. Okay, now nice and easy part. Grab your little zipper end. This should be a piece of vinyl, some sort of raw edge material, and add pieces of double-sided tape along both long edges of it. And then all you have to do is wrap it around your zipper end and tape in place. And just kind of eyeball it to make sure it overhangs the same amount on each side. How cute is that? So simple. It's a good way to add a tab, especially when you're tired. So now we're gonna go to the sewing machine. I'm just gonna top stitch along this inner raw edge here at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, making sure I backstitch at the beginning and the end. And there we go. That looks cute. So you can just tuck this into the bag if you don't like it hanging out. And isn't that just perfect? It's perfect. Grab our amazing strap. Add our little strap onto here. Hello, you. You're adorable. Did I make mistakes? Of course I did. It wouldn't be an OklaRoots YouTube channel tutorial if I didn't. But it still looks great. It looks so good, mistakes and all. And I really loved using the jelly vinyl. I think that was really helpful. So if you're stuck with material, I would not say this is a beginner bag, not because of the pattern, but because of the material. The material that we're using, it's just going to be a little bit more difficult, but oh my gosh, it's so cute, isn't it? All right, guys, let's look at this beautiful bag. It's so colorful. I just absolutely adore that we use this jelly vinyl. Again, I know I haven't made the bag the way it's intended to be made yet. I will, I promise. I will make a clear version because I do want to take one to a concert. But I absolutely love the jelly vinyl. The water resistant canvas on the top, perfect, absolutely perfect. So if you're gonna make this for the first time and you're kind of like, oh, I've worked with clear vinyl a little bit before, but I don't know, I would suggest like a jelly or a lighter weight clear vinyl on the bottom and then some really good water resistant canvas on top. Again, light layers, light but durable. Like, I don't tend to love using quilt cotton on bags, especially a bag like this, which is like so great as a easy to wipe down bag. I feel like if I had like a quilt cotton or cotton woven on the top, then it would kind of defeat it, you know, because that's hard to keep clean. And this water resistant canvas is really easy to keep clean. So I love how this turned out so much, even though the universe was against us, guys. During this tutorial, like every single neighbor's lawn is getting mowed, and now someone's having their lawn mowed again. I don't know. The storms went through, the dogs were losing their mind. It was one of those days where there was a lot of distractions, which meant I made a few mistakes. I know a lot of you guys like it when I show the mistakes, so hopefully it's helpful for me to kind of go through that with you. You can see, you know, like this one, I put this on backwards. Still looks super, super cute. Still, I mean, it's still perfect, you know. I'm pretty sure this tag is not centered. I don't know how I messed that up, but it's okay. Even with mistakes, it's still an adorable bag, and it's one I think you should definitely make. So if you make this bag using the tutorial today, please make sure you tag me. I want to see your version. I'm so excited to see more of these. I'm so excited to make the Western one. When I make the Western one, the bottom will be clear. So check social media. I'll be sharing it over there once that's done. I hope you love sewing with me today. I hope you have a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.